Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company of the 440 Sports Network, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. On a Hot Take Friday, we are part of the Believe YouTube Podcast Network. Here on the program, we got a lot to get into today. The rebrand. Legerious Sneed is gone. There was something that happened yesterday that makes me think I'm pretty certain about one thing that I thought may happen. It's probably not going to happen with the Titans roster. And then a trend I'm noticing from old Robert Saleh, and we'll get into all of that today. I also want you to know I'm not a big gambling advice guy. I make picks and say, hey, here's what I would do, but I try not to say, like, you should bet on this team, but bet everything you have on Tennessee to beat Vanderbilt today. I'm just going to tell you that straight up. Okay, before we get to my reaction to the uniform reveal, though most of you already know how I feel, let's tell you about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. And when it comes to Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, you probably know how I feel about them too. They are the best. They've been in business since 1990. They are family-owned and operated. 100% satisfaction. If happy you'll be, or the service is free. If a customer is not pleased with the work performed, Hiller will make it right. Learn more at happyhiller.com with professional, experienced, trustworthy technicians who come into your home and leave it clean and better than they found it. Care is their core value. Hiller believes that when they care about others, everybody wins, and they'll take care of the customer on every job, every time. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. That's Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today. One person, by the way, says Jared hates everything. And the next person says, that's how he gets his ratings. He is a part of the Player Haters Club. That's not true. Like, I don't know if it's because of how I grew up, where I don't feel like I have to answer to anybody as far as like, oh, the Titans said I should feel this way, so I do. But it's not that I hate everything. It's just that the Titans do a lot of dumb stuff. And when the Titans do dumb stuff, I call it out. When the Predators do dumb stuff, I call it out. When I feel like anybody does something stupid, like when the Big Ten was going on about this 16-team playoff with the 4 automatic qualifiers or whatever the hell it was, I'm like, that's stupid, and I know why you're doing it, and you're doing it because you want to protect your TV contracts, and I find that to be offensive to my intelligence. It is not about ranting and raving just to get people to pay attention. That's not what I do. I don't need to do that. I'm never going to do that. To the uniforms. Last night, the Titans unveiled the new uniforms. I commend the Titans on what looked like a very cool event, and I commend the Titans on the fact that, for the most part, those jerseys did not leak until the very last second. And I saw them last night when they leaked, and I showed my dad, and all I could think about was the CD that they handed to me as I walked in. I was 8 years old, to Vanderbilt Stadium ahead of the Titans and the Chargers in 1998. Ronnie Dunn singing, "We're the Tennessee Oilers, red, white, and blue. Tennessee Oilers, we're going to get all over you." And that's all I could think about when I looked at those jerseys. And I hate the new uniforms. And I don't hate the new uniforms because I think they're ugly. I don't think they're ugly. I never thought the Oiler uniforms were ugly. I hate the new uniforms because they are the Oilers uniforms with 3 stars on it and the word Titans instead of Oilers. That's it. I hate the new uniforms because what I feel like it represents, what I feel like is happening here, and that we, the people of Nashville, the people that had NFL yes signs in our front yard, we, the people that demanded Bud Adams not name the team the Oilers, we, the people that packed the then Adelphia Coliseum, we, the people that went down to Atlanta, Georgia in an ice storm and watched our football team lose by 1 yard, we, the people that took pride in being so loud those first couple of years that teams were committing false starts and we felt like a part of the game, we, the people who love the Tennessee Titans, Steve McNair, Eddie George, Javon Curse, Frank Wycheck, Derek Mason, Bruce Matthews, Samari Roll, Blaine Bishop. I can go on and on. Keith Bullock, Chris Johnson, Vince Young, Nate Washington, Jarrell Casey, Delaney Walker, Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, A.J. Brown, Kevin Byard. And we are all just being kicked to the curb. And we're being kicked to the curb because even after 30 years of being the Titans, I guess Amy Adams Strunk and the Adams family has just never gotten over their divorce from the city of Houston. And it's clear to a certain extent the city of Houston has not gotten over their divorce from the Oilers and Bud Adams and his family. I went on Houston radio this morning because, once again, I don't have a problem with being the Oilers, except that I'm not an Oiler fan. I'm a Titan fan. And I said this when the new logo came out. I said, I'm not an Oiler fan. I am a Titan fan. And I said this last year when the Titans started talking about how Titan blue was going to be their new primary color. And I said, that's bullshit. The Titans, I know, it's the navy jerseys, it's the white helmets, it's the white pants, it's Super Bowl 34, it's undefeated at home that first year, it's Eddie George during the Bengals game on the bench waving the towel in the air. That's the Titans I know. And when it came to this rebrand, again, they say Titans on the jersey, but there's nothing Titan about them. There's nothing about the Greek roots, the old Remember the Titans speech that Coach Herman Boone gave the T.C. Williams Titans about how in Greek mythology the Titans were greater even than the gods. Well, they don't want you to think about any of that anymore. Berg Nihill's new bullshit line was Titans of the industry, like how Dolly Parton is a titan of her industry. And again, I think I'd be okay with this to a certain extent. I would disagree with it, but I would be okay with it if Amy would just call it out for what it is. If Amy were to just say, those were the uniforms I grew up with. My dad started the Oilers. I was 5 years old when he founded the Oilers, and I've always wanted to go back to it. And I feel like as we open up a brand new stadium, I want us to embrace being the Oilers. If she had just said that, then I'd have said, okay, I disagree with it, but at least you're being intellectually honest with me. When you pretend like this is not all about becoming the Oilers again, and this is not all about your 30-year divorce from the Houston city, you make me feel like I'm stupid. And I'm not stupid. And that's what bothers me. Again, I liken this to a marriage and a divorce. 30 years ago, really more than 30 years ago, Bud Adams and the city of Houston had irreconcilable differences. There is an NFL Network documentary, A Football Life, on the 1993 Oilers. And the story of that team and how wild and crazy it was. And Bud Adams said, if that team cannot win the Super Bowl, then I'm tearing it down. And Bud Adams tore it down after they lost to Joe Montana and the Kansas City Chiefs at the old Houston Astrodome. And he tore it down, I think, in large part because he was upset that he couldn't get a new stadium. And a new stadium had luxury suites and club seats in them. Why? Because when it comes to regular tickets, think of the current Nissan Stadium, the blue tickets. The Titans share that with the rest of the league. When it comes to the red seats and the luxury boxes, the Titans keep that money. And Bud Adams wanted a new stadium. But the city of Houston didn't like dealing with his shit. And so they said, enough was enough. No new stadium for you. And he left. And so he negotiated a deal with Governor Bredesen. At the time, I guess he was Mayor Bredesen. They negotiated a deal, and boom, the Tennessee Titans were born. And over that 30-year period, the Titans have hated the Houston Texans. And that comes from ownership. I have to tell you, when it comes to the Texans, I don't like the Texans. I don't want the Texans to win, but I don't hate the Texans the way I hate the Ravens. I don't think I even hate the Texans the way I hate the Colts. I probably hate the Texans about as much as I hate Jacksonville, which is they're in the division. But if Houston were to win the Super Bowl, I wouldn't cry about it. I really don't like the Ravens. That's the team as a Titan fan that I don't like. And so I know, though, that it's more personal for the Adams coming from Houston. That's why Bud Adams made sure that the Titans drafted Vince Young with the 3rd overall pick in 2006 because he knew those Houston Texan fans wanted Vince Young with the 1st overall pick. He was a legend at the University of Texas. And when Vince Young ran a touchdown in overtime in Houston, I guarantee you, Bud Adams loved every second of that. That goes back to the hatred that the Adams family has for the city of Houston. Again, I'm married to the Tennessee Titans. I love the Tennessee Titans. It hasn't been perfect, but what we've had for the last 30 years, I think it's been a pretty special part of my life. But if you were in a 30-year marriage and you loved your spouse, and your spouse was still trying to shove it to her ex, how would you feel? And that's how I feel today. And I went on Houston radio this morning and I was asked about it. And I saw the reaction in Houston. And holy crap, these people are taking it so personally. And that's what Amy wants. Because for Amy, it is personal. For the Adams, it is personal. But that's not my fight. That's their fight. For the city of Houston, it's personal. They broke up with the Oilers. The Oilers moved here. They remarried the Texans. And if I was the McNair family, I think I'd be like, guys, let it go. We don't want to be the Oilers. We're the Texans. But the way I feel here is that we're all being marketed a bunch of new crap that they want us to buy as a fuck you to Houston when I don't feel the need to give up what I was cheering for, that marriage that I've had for the last 30 years, just to say fuck you to Houston. And you know what's crazy when it comes to really saying fuck you to Houston? You know what is a real middle finger to them? It's not wearing uniforms that look like the uniforms that they used to wear. It would be to have your own thing in your own city and winning in that. You don't think it hurt Houston in 1999 when a team in navy blue called the Tennessee Titans went to the Super Bowl after all those years of being the Oilers in those love you blue jerseys and all the times they didn't go to the Super Bowl? That hurt Houston. It's a personal squabble that as a Titan fan, I feel like we're lighting the history of the Tennessee Titans on fire, the 30-year marriage that I feel like I've had with the club, just so Amy can score some gotcha points against a city that right now laughs at us because their football team is so much better than our football team. And the terribleness of this football team is a byproduct of Amy's incompetence as the owner of this team. And I know the Titans tried to pay homage to Tennessee with a guitar string on the helmet. But again, those are Houston Oiler uniforms. We knew they were going to be Houston Oiler uniforms. They were Houston Oiler uniforms. And you're the Houston Oilers. And some people love it. There is this thing about nostalgia. Nick Suss was talking about it this morning on a football show. And he was talking about the nostalgia element. That every 15 years, people long for what they used to have. That's why shows like Roseanne, that weren't even that good when they were on, are getting rebooted on all these streaming services. Now, I love King of the Hill, and I love the King of the Hill reboot, but that's why. Because it takes us back to 1998, 1999, 2002, when King of the Hill was a part of Fox Sunday animation domination lineup. And that's why they've got a reboot. And that's what's happening here. Again, it's taking advantage of the nostalgia. I played those uniforms on the N64 NFL Blitz, where you could hit the receiver before the ball got there. That's what I remember. McNair, George, Wycheck, Dyson, Thigpen on offense, and then Lonnie Martz and Blaine Bishop, and I try to think who else. I think like Joe Bowden, were on defense back in the day. But that's not my team. My team is the Titans. I remember how jazzed up the city was for the first game at the Adelphia Coliseum, a preseason game against the Atlanta Falcons. That was our team, not the Oilers. And so when I see this, I just say to myself, oh, great. We're being used as pawns. And this all started because J.J. Watt a couple years ago came out on Twitter and said, we should wear the Oiler uniforms. And the Titans and their fans and the Amy Adams Strunk over my dead body, which they had every right to do, and I am all for that. I mean, I don't believe that because the games were played in Houston that they own the history and the record books or anything like that. I mean, Hank Aaron hit a bunch of home runs for the Milwaukee Braves. The Brewers don't get to claim that. He did that as a Brave, not as a Brewer. But that led to all the talk about the Oilers. Then the NFL allowed the second helmet. The Titans got to bring out the Oiler throwbacks. And just like how the Chargers fell in love with their powder blues, and if the Patriots didn't win 6 Super Bowls and their navies, they'd probably be back in the Reds. It gave Amy the opportunity to give one final fuck you to the city of Houston and to change it back to the Oilers without being back to the Oilers. And I just, again, feel like this is a total screw you. And I know they brought out Eddie George and they brought out Javon Curse and they brought out, it was a great dog and pony show last night. I give them credit. It was an excellent pep rally, which is what it was. It was a great pep rally from all the pictures and the videos and everything else. I'm more worried about winning on the football field than I am about how great the pep rally was with Kyle Brandt, who, by the way, I actually kind of like. Kyle Brandt and I stayed I think 2 rooms over at the Westin in San Francisco at the Super Bowl. So we kept running into each other and we chat on the elevators and thinking, nice guy. And so he was the MC yesterday. And it was a great pep rally. But to me, it doesn't take away the fact that I really feel like the Titans yesterday finally submitted to all of us that the 30 years they've been with us, they really don't care about that. They're more worried about their ex, and they're more worried about pissing off their ex. I mean, I was at something with my girlfriend, and we were up in the VIP section, and I look down from the VIP section, and I see an ex-girlfriend of mine and her boyfriend, and they see me, and they start trying to put on a show in front of us, and it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing that they were trying to put on this show in front of us. Even people that my girlfriend worked with that were up there were like, what are these people doing? And it was so embarrassing. And that's how I feel like Amy looks right now, is she's trying to shove it to the people of Houston, and it does piss them off. So I guess mission accomplished. But to me, it's embarrassing. And to me, it's a slap in the face. It is a slap in the face to everything that I supported as a Tennessee Titan fan. And people yesterday were like, you're just so negative. You just hate everything. You'll never like it. Here's another one. Of course, another bitching episode wakes up every day to find something to bitch about. Well, first of all, I've been telling you, I hate this thing with the Oilers. I've hated this for a while. This is not new. But at the same time, don't you kind of understand? You guys lived through that too. And this team is terrible. Legerious Sneed got cut. I remember when I was a hater for saying that Legerious Sneed has bad knees, guys. Oh, Jared, you just hate Rand Carthon. Again, this is just how I feel. I feel like the Steve McNair, Eddie George Titans. I feel like the team in 2000 that was 13-3 and actually had the number one defense. That 2000 Ravens defense technically finished second in the NFL, and the Titans choked that playoff game away thanks in large part to Al Del Greco. I think the 2002 Titans team that started the year 1-4 and ended up 11-5 and in the AFC title game, I think that is one of the best Titan teams they've ever had. The next year, Steve McNair won the MVP. We saw the window close. We saw them rebuild it again. We saw the Chris Johnson era. I feel like all of that is just like, nah. We're more worried about our ex. We're more worried about the people that we divorced 30 years ago. And I just think it's kind of bullshit. Now, as far as the actual jerseys themselves are concerned, I mean, if you're going for the Oiler look, it's great. If you're going for the Oiler look. But again, I am a fan of the Titans, and that's not the Titans. And today when I was doing a football show with Nick Suss, he said Burke Nihill had a media availability yesterday, and Burke was like, this had nothing to do with the Texans. This had nothing to do with the city of Houston. Bullshit. Like, come on. Like, again, and this is what drives me crazy when it comes to the Titans. The Titans don't tell the truth about everything. And not only do they not tell the truth about everything, they act like we're so fucking stupid every time they do it. Warren Moon said when they gave Cam the number 1, he said they'll never wear the Oiler jerseys again. And I hear they're getting new uniforms and they'll look like the Oiler jerseys. And I had somebody from the Titans call me and say, Warren Moon doesn't know what we're doing with the uniforms. And now that everything is in the rearview mirror, I can tell you Warren Moon was 100% correct. And that person who told me that day that Warren Moon didn't know was lying, which again is another example of the Titans not telling the truth. And I keep saying this, Legerious Sneed, I think, is a great example of them not telling the truth. Remember, they said it was a quad bruise. They said Legerious Sneed got hurt when he took a helmet to the quad in the Indianapolis game in 2024. And yet he's still hurt. With the quad? No, it's the knee. The bad knee. The knee that the rest of the league didn't want to trade for. The knee that Kansas City didn't want to extend. It's all bullcrap. They lied about that. They just won't tell the truth. And I find it to be expensive, or let's say expensive, offensive, how they just never, ever tell the truth. Like, it is offensive to my intelligence when they sit there and say, this has nothing to do with the city of Houston. Like, even TDG, you don't believe that, do you? Like, I know you like the uniforms, but you tell me this got nothing to do with Houston. That's what I'm wondering about. So, that's my take on the uniforms. And again, I went on Houston radio today, and they were making this all out to be like a, don't you hate Amy Adams Strunk? And I'm like, look, I don't hate Amy Adams Strunk, and I don't think that the city of Houston deserves the Oiler history or the Oiler records. That's part of the Titans history and the Titans records, and Bud Adams kept it. And so this idea that the city of Houston felt entitled to the Oilers, no, you don't get the Oilers. I feel bad for some of those players that kind of feel like they played in Houston, and so the fans here don't know them like they would have if they played there. I get that, but at the same time, like, no, this is your franchise. And I think Amy has done a good job of branching out to those players and being like, Earl Campbell, you're a part of this. Warren Moon, you're a part of this. Al Smith, you're a part of this. But it feels like I have been drugged into the middle of a catty fight between Amy Adams Strunk and the city of Houston. So I see, busting in the chats like, do the Timberwolves get the Minneapolis Lakers history? No. I've never argued the city of Houston gets the Oilers history. Cities don't get histories. They belong with franchises. Bud Adams got it in writing that it was his franchise, and he deserves it. He founded it. Bud Adams belongs in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I'm actually kind of glad that Belichick got left out of the Hall of Fame, no matter how bad that makes the Hall of Fame look, because Belichick is absolutely a first ballot Hall of Famer. But it brought to everybody's attention how fucked up the process is when it comes to the Pro Football Hall of Fame for putting in people who belong in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, like Rune Ardeledge, the ABC executive that founded Monday Night Football. How can you tell the story of the NFL without Monday Night Football, the TV phenomenon that made it America's most popular sport? You can't. That's like telling the story of basketball globally without the Dream Team. And yet he has to wait because we only put one guy in and they have to get all these votes and everything else. It's ridiculous that Bud Adams, who co-founded the AFL, is not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It is ridiculous that Bud Adams, who allowed Joe Namath to go to the Jets so that New York could be viable to save the AFL, is not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Bud Adams, who was essential in the merger for the AFL and the NFL to give us the Super Bowl, is not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I mean, it drives me crazy. And I don't even know why I'm going on this rant. But, again, I don't want to be part of this fight with Houston. I love my football team. My football team is the Titans. Now, I am going to give Amy a little bit of leeway on this front. Because if something ever happens, and I guess never say never, I don't think I have the balls to do like a venture capital thing and make $800 billion or whatever. But again, things happen. If I become the next great billionaire and I buy the Tennessee Titans, which would certainly be on my to-do list, if I buy the Tennessee Titans one day, the first thing we're doing is we're going back to the old uniforms and not the ones they've been wearing. We're going back to the Steve McNair and Eddie George uniforms. Now, I think those are the best uniforms, but that's my childhood. My guess is these Oiler uniforms, that's her childhood. And so that probably plays a role in that. My grandfather was very successful, ran a business, still around in Nashville today. And my mom and her sisters talk about my grandfather with this unbelievable reference. I hope my grandkids and my kids talk about me that way. I don't know if they will or they won't. But I bet you that Amy Adams Strunk and the rest of that family has that same reverence for Bud. Well, we know Bud didn't really like Nashville, and yeah, Bud owned the Titans, but the Oilers were his team. And I think there's probably something there too. So, again, they look nice. It was a good pep rally, whatever. And the most important thing when it comes to these uniforms, I don't give a shit what they wear. If they win football games, good for them. That's what I care about. This is my team in my city, and I want my team to win, and I could care less what they wear as long as they win. The other thing is, with some of you people, when it comes to this, I mean, they could have put poop on a jersey, and some of you people would be like, oh my God, it's immaculate. And when you do that, I can't take you seriously. When a team could put poop on a jersey and you just absolutely fall in love with it, I just kind of, whatever. Okay. So that's my take on the uniform thing. And again, I think the city of Houston needs to shut the fuck up and enjoy their football team, which is about to make, by the way, a massive mistake. They're going to pay C.J. Stroud. They shouldn't. They should make C.J. Stroud prove that whatever has gotten into him over the last 2 years is getting out of him before they give him all that money. but they can't do it because that's what happens when you want to tell yourself that you have a franchise quarterback. You say, we have Joe Burrow. And then you go and treat your quarterback like Joe Burrow, and CJ Stroud is not at this point Joe Burrow. And so I don't really fear the Texans. I mean, I thought this was the year for the Texans. The Texans should have played in the Super Bowl this year with that defense they had. They blew it. And so I don't look at the Texans and think like, wow, the Texans are going to be great. But I don't want them to win. They're doing okay right now. Houston fans, go enjoy your own team. But I guess we have to enjoy their team too. I guess we have to be the sloppy seconds. You know, they're the ones that got away as far as ownership of the Titans is concerned, and we're just the ones that would marry them. We're the rebound. And I don't like that feeling. Okay, number 2. Goodbye, Legerious Sneed. Boy, what a wild ride that was. And as we approach what Caroline Fenton coined It'll Be Fine season, which is coming rapidly and before you know it, I want to remind everybody what we learned from the Legerious Sneed saga. If you want me to tell you what they're going to do with the added money that they found by releasing Legerious Sneed, I can't tell you that. If you want to ask me, are they actually going to spend the money that they claimed on insurance for what I think was probably Sneed, Cushenberry, and Ridley? Again, I can't tell you that. But I want to talk about, in review, what happened with Legerious Sneed and the lessons that need to be learned. Because I know deep down inside, many of you won't learn them. Legerious Sneed was, I think, the pinnacle example of the incompetence of Rand Carthon as general manager of the Titans. And look, they're not going to go unfire Rand and hire him back. I'm not worried about that. But I would say when it comes to that era, what happened was Titan fans were so desperate to want to believe that they were on the right path that the Titans took a risk that was not worth taking. As I said when it came to Trey Hendrickson, who was coming off of an injury and is 31 years old, that's a risk I was willing to take. And if I was the general manager, I'd be willing to get fired over it. But I don't understand how Legerious Sneed's arthritic, degrading knee was a risk the Titans wanted to take. Kansas City had them in their own room, and they didn't want to take that risk. Minnesota had a better offer on the table, found out more about the knee, and they didn't want to take that risk. Carrington Harrison, who is a coworker of mine at Sirius XM on Mad Dog Radio, he hosts a show in Kansas City. He said, you may think the knees aren't that bad. Oh, it'll be fine. It's not that bad. And Carrington Harrison said, no, from what I'm hearing, and he's obviously hearing this from the Chiefs, from what I'm hearing, it is that bad. And so the Titans acquired Legerious Sneed, and Legerious Sneed told Caroline, Titan fans, there's nothing to worry about Legerious Sneed's knees. And as soon as Titan fans heard that, they said, yes, yes. And I was the one guy that kept reading everything that was being said, and I'm thinking, this doesn't add up. Why would you take a guy that's got a degrading knee? And you people out there just put your hands over yours and la, 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 don't want to talk about it. The same way, anytime I bring up the fact that Cam Ward was the worst quarterback, according to every metric, you guys want to la, 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 the coach stunk, la, 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 team stunk, don't blame you, la, 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 la. And I guess I would just ask this. And the vitriol comes from mostly on Twitter. Most of society is not on Twitter. The team does run their operations based off of Twitter. But I guess I would just ask this, if I could. Maybe instead of being upset all the time that I'm poking holes in these dreams of a utopia that the Titans want everybody to believe exists and that they as a franchise are headed there, maybe listen to what I have to say occasionally. Because I think I'm right more often than I'm wrong. Have I been wrong before? Absolutely, I've been wrong before. I thought the Titans were going to take Jeremiah Love in the first round a week ago. Now, after something that happened yesterday, I don't think they're going to take Jeremiah Love. I'll get to that in a second. But again, this becomes this crazy vitriol of go find another team to cover. Or maybe you can just not watch the show or not respond or not get triggered or not. But I also think deep down inside, some of you guys know, Jared tells the truth. I want nothing more than the Titans to win the Super Bowl. I do. I'm a huge fan. Again, I think if you played a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire game, Who Wants to Be a Titanaire, I think I could do it. I'd like to challenge anybody that's been covering the team from day one to a Titans trivia contest. I think I'll win. But at the same time, I guess I get angry. I'm not sitting here I don't want to be one of these cable news guys that's like, I'm the only one who will tell you the truth, and they won't tell you the truth, and they don't. I don't want to do that, but I'm also not here to play grab ass. What I love about the Titans, and I think I've told this story many a time, but I think it's always worth telling. When I was a sophomore in high school, this was 2006, the Titans started the season off by losing at home to the Jets and losing at home in week 2 to the Chargers. And I remember walking out of the stadium with my dad, and I was just ranting. The same way you guys rant when they lose games, just like any other fan. Tackling sucked, team sucked, coaching sucked, this sucked, that sucked. Probably doesn't surprise you. That's just how I used to be. And I think the worst part about it was, as a huge diehard fan of this team, I felt like I was voiceless. And the reality is now, the biggest benefit I love about what I do is they hear it. Felt that way when I was on the radio. And when I started this show, I was worried that they wouldn't hear it. And it didn't take very long for me to realize, nope, they hear it. And so my criticisms are not meant to put down. My criticisms are, and my cynicism is built out of a place of really wanting what's best for the Titans. And I knew in 2024 that Legerious Sneed was not in the best interest of the Tennessee Titans, even though everybody wanted to believe that it would be fine. It'd be fine. I didn't complain about Calvin Ridley that offseason. Didn't complain about Tony Pollard. Wish they had kept Derrick Henry. Wish they had made an effort to keep Derrick Henry. I remember I went to training camp practice against the Seahawks when the offense couldn't get a first down. And I said, if you guys saw practice today, you would have said, Will Levis sucks. And the amount of people that got so bent out of shape by that take, it's like it's become personal for people for my criticism of the Titans, when I think my criticism of the Titans is analysis. And I just want Legerious Sneed to be the example of, hey, maybe I'm not as bad of a guy as everybody seems to think I am out there in Titan land. So that's the second thing. The third thing is the Jeremiah Love thing. And I want to get to that. So I don't care for the most part who wears what number. I'm not a huge uniform guy either. I mean, I know everybody wanted to know about the uniforms. And look, I wanted to know what the uniforms looked like too. I had a pretty good idea of what they were going to look like. It's exactly what I thought. It's the Tennessee Oilers uniforms all over again, but whatever. But there was a piece of uniform news yesterday that came out that I actually think is a football hint. So Wan'Dale Robinson with the New York Giants wore number 17. And as we all know, when a team acquires a new player and that player's number is taken, that player can do one of two things. That player can go to the player who currently wears it and ask permission to have their number. And then usually there's a monetary exchange, or that guy can get a new number. Well, Wan'Dale Robinson was asked, with Chim DK wearing number 17, what number Wan'Dale Robinson was going to wear with the Titans. And Wan'Dale Robinson announced on Twitter yesterday that he will wear number 4. And when I saw Wan'Dale Robinson announce that he would be wearing number 4, my Jeremiah Love heart sunk. And the reason why is because if the Titans had any plans at all whatsoever to draft Jeremiah Love, they would not have given Wan'Dale Robinson number 4. Now, I'm sure somebody will say, well, hold on, Jared. They could say to Wan'Dale Robinson, we'll give him number 4, we'll draft Jeremiah Love, and then Jeremiah Love can call up Wan'Dale Robinson and offer him a Rolex in order to get number 4, and then Wan'Dale Robinson can wear. I think if the Titans had it set in their heart that they were going to draft Jeremiah Love, or thought that it was a real possibility that they were going to draft Jeremiah Love, they would have told Wan'Dale Robinson number 4 is off the table. I think they would have said, no, that number's not available. Why not? It's not available. But what about, go get another number. What number do you want to be? You can't be number 4. And instead, I think it was, Wan'Dale, you were number 17 with the Giants, and Chim DK wears number 17. Would you like to call Chim DK and say, hey, how about a car in exchange for number 17? No, I'm good. I want to keep my money. And it's like, all right, well, what number would you want? How about number 4? Number 4 works because we're not picking Jeremiah Love. And I'm sad about that because I do think the Titans need to take Jeremiah Love. Now, I can get on board with some of these other guys, like Arvell Reese, like Sonny Styles, that the Titans could take with the 4th overall pick. But the guy who I think makes the most sense for what this team needs right now, and I don't mean needs as in, well, we need a running back so we can just plug his name in on the depth chart. But I think the Titans need a playmaker on offense who can take pressure off of Cam Ward and can also help Cam in the passing game. And that guy is Jeremiah Love. He's the most dynamic player that the Titans could add, and I think they need to do that on offense. They're not going to. They're going to take one of the edge rushers. It's either going to be Bailey, Bain, or Reese. It is as simple as that. And if the Titans were really as interested in Jeremiah Love as Matthew Berry said they were in on Jeremiah Love at the Combine, Wan'Dale Robinson would not be wearing number 4. Josh in the chat says, you're telling me that's the only reason why they wouldn't be drafting Love? Why couldn't they still take Love? I mean, I guess technically the Titans could take Jeremiah Love, but they're not going to. Because if there's anything I've learned about the Titans, social media matters. Twitter matters. What the fans want matters. Selling shit to the fans matters. This is an organization that unretired a Hall of Famer's number last year to give it to a first-round rookie who has not pissed a drop in the National Football League. You think they wouldn't want Jeremiah Love wearing number 4? If they love Jeremiah Love as much as Matthew Berry said, which is the Titans think he's the best player in this draft, the Titans love him, then they would not have given number 4 to Wan'Dale Robinson. That's just not how they do business. So, yes, the fact that Wan'Dale Robinson has number 4 means Jeremiah Love is out. This one person says, Stillman, if you were a true Titans fan, you wouldn't spew so much hate. You're so damn negative against the Titans. Perhaps you could just find a new team. Okay, so I do want to discuss this for a second. You should just find a new team, Jared. First of all, I'm a Titan season ticket holder. I live in Nashville. I live 15 minutes away from the stadium. Well, you want me to go be a Cleveland Brown fan and then travel 8 hours to go to the game? No, this is my town. This is my team. I'm not somebody who moved here and has just dreams of being in the media, so I just want, no. I moved here because this is my town. These are my teams. I want my son to love the Titans. I used to joke with Floyd on the Jared and the GM program. I used to joke with Floyd that, I will tell my son not to be a Titan fan. I had my heart broken one time. It's 2018, and I had my heart just crushed. And I remember walking into my apartment at the time and being like, you know what? You're used to this, Jared. You're a Titans fan. You're a Preds fan. You're used to getting your hopes up and then having your heart crushed. And I used to joke with Floyd that when I have kids, I'm going to hope that my kids don't root for the Titans. I'm going to be like, no. Dad and Grandpa have been through far too much for you to root for the Titans. Please root for the Packers or the Steelers or somebody else. But I can't do that. This is my team. And then the second thing, when it comes to finding a new team, that if I were to find a second team, then wouldn't you say, well, go like the Seattle Seahawks? But if I said, well, I'm renouncing my Titan fandom and I'm now a Seattle Seahawk fan, then you guys would all just call me a bandwagoner. So I'm not doing it. I'm in this for the long haul. I love the Tennessee Titans. And I can't tell you what's going to happen with my career because I don't know. But I feel pretty certain that I will always love the Tennessee Titans. Even if the Tennessee Titans don't always love me back. And I hope, and I don't know this, I hope that what I feel like has been a love-hate relationship between me and the Titans for the last decade can remain just that. I love them, but I got to get on their ass. And I'm sure they hate how much I get on their ass all the time. But I hope they know that I love them. And because of that, they love me. I love my football team. That's not going to change. I remember when Eric Dickerson and Jeff Fisher got into it. Eric Dickerson did a media tour to really just get Jeff Fisher fired. And Eric Dickerson said that Jeff Fisher called him and said, hey, you've been critical of the team and the coaches and the players don't feel comfortable having you around and blah, 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 blah. And Eric Dickerson said that he let Jeff Fisher go on. And finally, once Jeff Fisher was done, Jeff Fisher wanted to hang us. All right, Eric, thank you for taking my call. And Eric Dickerson said, no. It's my turn now. And Eric Dickerson said, you're just a coach. You'll be gone. But I'll always be Eric Dickerson of the Los Angeles Rams. And he looked at Colin Cowherd and he said, Colin, I love my football team. And that's how I feel about my team. I will always be Jared Stillman, the fat 10-year-old that went to the then Georgia Dome that no longer exists and cried when they lost by 1 yard. Phil Collins was the halftime show. I remember going to the Super Bowl, how excited I was that I get to see my first Super Bowl halftime show. And the only memory I have of that Super Bowl halftime show was of Phil Collins singing the song that I think was used in the soundtrack of the Disney movie Milan. And during that, I was in line in the bathroom with my dad, and I was upset about how the Titans offense was completely stalling out in the first half of the Super Bowl. So you guys can say whatever shit you want to me. I'm not changing. I love this team, and I'm going to continue to love this team. One final thing I do want to hit on today. So Robert Saleh, since we got off the show on Wednesday, Robert Saleh, holy crap, has he been making some Robert Saleh additions since the last show we did. Solomon Thomas, who played for Saleh with the 49ers and the Jets, acquired from the Cowboys. Jordan Elliott, who played for the 49ers. Jacob Martin, who played for the Jets. Tony Adams, who also played for the Jets, have been added to the Titans to go along with Jermaine Johnson and John Franklin Myers, who have already been added from Robert Saleh's past. And while traditionally I don't like the idea of the general manager just asking the coach, who do you want me to go sign? Because I think that's the general manager's job. After all, the general manager is the one who's been trained in personnel, not the coach. I do like one thing I think I'm seeing, if they can finish the deal. And what I think's happened is Robert Saleh's looked at his defenses with the 49ers, and he's looked at his defenses with the Jets, and he said, I'm coming to Tennessee to recreate that. I want Brian Dable to run the offense. I want Brian Dable to put in the plan for Cam Ward. I want Brian Dable to operate that. Again, I had my hand in the cookie jar a little bit on Zach Wilson. I'm out of that. Let me do defense. I'll call the plays. Well, with the Jets and with the 49ers, Robert Saleh has had a dominant defensive tackle. With the Jets, it was Quinnen Williams. And with the 49ers, it was DeForest Buckner. And then they add the players around that guy. And they're not all superstars. Now, Nick Bosa is a superstar, but for the most part, they're not all superstars. It's guys like Bryce Huff, and again, Jermaine Johnson, and Will McDonald, and so on and so forth. But he's had that stud defensive lineman everywhere he's been. The one thing, though, that I need to see Robert Saleh finish the job on is when it comes to the two linebackers. Cedric Gray is good enough to be the second linebacker, but I need another one. They can play that Fred Warner role, that CJ Mosley role, that kind of quarterback of the defense. It could be Sonny Styles, but again, I think they're taking an edge rusher. And who's going to be Sauce Gardner? That's what I wonder. Who's going to be the Sauce Gardner of this? I don't care about corners, but I think even with the money they're spending, they know Cordell Flott and Alontae Taylor. That's not Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. Maybe it can be DJ Reed, but it's not Sauce Gardner. Who's going to be that guy? Who's going to be Diamador Lenore of this defense? But I'm fine with him going through and saying, hey, these are the guys that do what we need to have done around Quinnen Williams, and now we're going to acquire them to have them do the same things they did around Quinnen Williams around Jeffrey Simmons. That makes sense. These are the same guys that we had in San Francisco around DeForest Buckner, and we want him to do the things that we had them do around DeForest Buckner. And we're just going to have them do them around Jeffrey Simmons. But for you to really get that solid defense, you need a Fred Warner. Who's going to be Fred Warner? You need a Sauce Gardner. Who's going to be Sauce Gardner? That's the one question I have. But I see them building that defense in Robert Saleh's image with a bunch of Robert Saleh guys, because Robert Saleh knows they can hit in the lineup around Jeffrey Simmons, who's batting cleanup. So that makes sense, and that I get. Owsley says, whether you want to admit it or not, Jared, the Oilers' history is a part of the Titans' history. They are not an expansion team. I never claimed they were. But the truth is when we talk about rebrand, I mean, the real rebrand was going from the Oilers to the Titans. That is saying, hey, our past is behind us. We embrace it. That's who we are. We respect it. We recognize it. But that's not who we are anymore. We're the Titans. We're the Tennessee Titans. And I think what they're doing now is they're saying, we're the Oilers. But we're the Tennessee Oilers. Please don't black out our games in Memphis anymore. Thank you. That's what I think. One person says, credit to Bud Adams for the willingness to switch to Titans. It was clear the Tennessee Oilers name wasn't landing, and the name change was great timing. I think I've brought this up before. I said this to Blaine Bishop 2 years ago. We're at training camp. I love Blaine Bishop. I think Blaine Bishop is one of the nicest guys, and I think he really, really cares about what he's, I think he really cares about what he does for a living every day. I have the utmost respect for Blaine. And I was talking to Blaine, and I was like, what's so funny? This is when all the Oilers merch was coming back out. I said, I remember when you guys played at Vanderbilt, and everybody, all of our friends, it was like, well, we're not going to buy any Oilers stuff. we're just going to wait until the new team, and then we're going to buy all the new stuff. And now it's like, well, now the Oilers stuff, we got to buy the Oilers stuff. It's like you didn't even buy the Oilers stuff when they were the Oilers. I just find that to be a little ironic. TDG says, we are definitely taking a pass rusher. That Love pick is over. And I know TDG wants Jeremiah Love. TDG, I hate to say it, baby. I think you're right. Again, I don't think they would have given away number 4 if they were going to take Jeremiah Love. One person says, I wish Amy would sell the team to local Tennessee owners with zero ties to Houston. These new uniforms are ridiculous. With an E. I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. I don't think the Titans are going to get sold. But a couple of years ago, there was some chatter that the Titans might be up for sale. And I remember bringing that chatter up, and boy, the Titans got really mad. And I don't know. I haven't seen anything to make me think they're going to sell the team. But it is a lot of money. I think somebody said to me at the Super Bowl this year, they're going to wait for the Seahawks. And then after the Seahawks get sold, then maybe they'll think. I don't know. Again, I'm just passing along gossip. I don't know that the Titans are going to sell. But who knows? Jared in Spring Hill says, I think my friend is still crying after the Bengals loss. A piece of him died that night. I just remember that night being on the phone with my then girlfriend and being like, I just hate, I was like half asleep, half drunk. And if you know me, I never drink. So like half asleep, half drunk. And I was just like, I hate the Titans. I was just saying it over and over again. But I was saying that in the way of I hate that I love the Titans so much. It just kept it was so depressed. It was like, I hate that every time I get my hopes up, the Titans, go out there and just shit it away. I didn't feel that way the year before when they lost to Baltimore. I felt like that was going to be a tough game. And really, I think Vrabel and Tannehill both kind of crapped their pants. But I really think Vrabel crapped his pants in that Ravens game. And nobody ever talks about that because he's the great Mike Vrabel. And then the year before, I wasn't upset when they lost to Kansas City in the AFC title game because I felt like they took it as far as they could take it. It sucked. I want them to go to the Super Bowl, but that Bengals one, that was the one that hurt. And I just felt like in my heart, and I know it's revisionist history to do that. It's like these people that are like, we would have only won 3 games if we had signed Sam Darnold, Jared, and there's no way to know that. I think the Titans, just the way that they were playing physically at that point in the season and how soft Kansas City was that year, I think the Titans would have just hammered the shit out of Kansas City in the AFC title game. And then I think they would have gone to LA and beaten the Rams. Now, some of that's because they already beat the Rams and it'd be a different game and Sean McVay would have adjusted. And so I'm sure there would have been something new there. But I think the physicality that the 2021 Titans played with, I think the toughness that the 21 Titans played with, I truly believe that if Arthur Smith had not gotten the Falcons job and had stayed as the offensive coordinator in 2021, the Titans would have won the Super Bowl. If Tannehill hadn't turned the ball over 3 times, I think they would have won the Super Bowl. And if they had won the Super Bowl in those uniforms, I'm not sure they could go back to the Oiler uniforms. No matter how popular the Oiler uniforms would have been, I don't think they could have done that. LF says that the Bengals loss was the biggest gut punch ever. You could smell the title that year. See, I still think it would have been tougher than I laid it out there. The biggest gut punch was the Ravens loss in 2000. That was our Super Bowl. And quite frankly, go look at the stats. The Titans outgained the Ravens that day, something like 400-88. But Al Del Greco missed a field goal, and then he got one blocked, and it was returned for a touchdown, and then Steve McNair throws the ball off Eddie George's shoulder, and Ray Lewis returns it for a touchdown. That one was worse than the Bengal game. The Bengal game is up there. And the Raider game in 2002, that one's up there too, because the Titans were right there in the AFC title game in Oakland, and then John Simon and Robert Holcomb fumbled the football. So sad. So sad. One person says, speaking of love, Stillman needs to show some love to the Titans for Miss Amy. She's done a wonderful job in keeping her dad's legacy within the Titans organization. Should be commended. I feel like I commend Amy for what she deserves credit for. I've told the story about how when she found out Floyd was sick, she did not waste any time in making sure that he got into the Titans Ring of Honor and that he knew it before he died. And I'll never not think about that when it comes to her and her doing that. And I know how much it meant to the Reeses, and you'll never hear me say a bad word about that ever. TDG says that Ravens game shook me to the core. That was my first true heartbreak in life. Like, I didn't go to school for 2 days. I was in the 5th grade. And I was too embarrassed to admit to be. I told people I was sick, and I told my parents I was sick, but I was too embarrassed to admit that I wasn't going to school because I was sad that the Titans lost. All right, that's it for us. Have a great weekend, everybody. I'll be on SiriusXM tomorrow afternoon. Be sure to check that out. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Our subscription numbers are going through the roof. Keep getting them up there. Tell your friends. Enjoy the weekend. Stillman and Company here on the 440 Sports Network. Also at 4 o'clock, the podcast, the Hot Read Pod, myself, James Foster, will be dropping on the 440 Sports Network and wherever you get your podcasts. We go through the film as to what the free agent signings mean and what it means for the draft. That's it for us.